right, so we've got draft obviously coming up in, what is it, 2 weeks now, 3 weeks, just 3 weeks about. Um, so teams are having top 30 meetings as they're called, and then they can also, I learned this today from Scoops, that they can also have players from that are either from the area or from schools in the area that don't count as to
Correct.
those
Towards
top
your top
30.
30.
Right. So then you were mentioning the position list of visits that we had and how
Yep.
it was really interesting. So let's hear
We
from you
can.
there.
Oh, that's not the right one. All right. So here is. Let's move us over here.
Get everything situated, huh?
All right. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. All right. So I have them organized as to the positions. So that's where I think it's most interesting. Obviously, the thing to keep in mind with these top 30, and not all of them are top 30. Some of them are combine visitors or visits. Um, but the thing to keep in mind with these top 30 visits is with Rick Spielman, you could pretty much tell who they were drafting based on their top 30. That's who, like, they drafted 10 guys. If they brought in 30, 10, all 10 were going to be in their top 30. The Vikings now do a lot of the same. So if these guys are coming in on top 30 visits and you go through each one and see like kind of where they're expected to be drafted, you'd learn a lot, I think, about what they're going to be targeting
Okay.
at each position in each round. But just overall, when you just take a look at the positions, we've got 5 cornerbacks and then 1 defensive back who's kind of plays a little bit of everywhere at Kentucky. And then lots of defensive line,
Yep.
DN, defensive line, D tackle,
D tackle.
and then lots of offensive line.
Yep.
And then running back, another offensive line. That's Ursery, counts as a home visit, so not in their top 30.
Right.
And then 2 tight ends, and I want to say they met with the Baylor wide receiver we don't have on the sheet. We wrote an article about him. I think they either have interest in it with him or met him at the combine, something like that.
Okay.
So a couple wide receivers,
Yep.
3 running backs, couple tight ends, but mostly offensive line, defensive line, and cornerback. So that gives you a very good idea. They are looking CB,
Yep.
defensive line, and
And
offensive
offensive
line
line.
in the draft. You will see a running back at some point too. But those are the 3 main areas that they're looking for in the draft. Here's a center here, so that's another one for the offensive line. Again, so that gives you an idea. What I found interesting, and I just wrote about this right before we went on, the one position that they do not have on here is safety, which when you look at their roster is a bit surprising.
Right.
Because they have Harrison Smith, who they brought back, but Cam Bynum's gone. And they have, we've written about it a few times, they've been very confident that Theo Jackson, like, he is the next, like, starting safety for this team. Since the beginning, when they first mentioned that, it just kind of took me by surprise. Not that they were comfortable with Theo Jackson as a starting safety, in a pinch, or hey, if we don't get what we're looking for in the draft, or if the right free agent doesn't pop up, we're open to Theo Jackson as the starter. But the conversation has not been about openness to
It's
having
been that
Theo.
word.
This is our starting safety. So, because Cam Bynum just left, there's lots of safety talent in this draft, especially towards the back end of the first round. And so it just seems like, on paper, a very, like, obvious position that they would pick with their first draft, or with their first draft pick on April 24th. And Vegas happens to agree. So if we look over at the sports books, DraftKings has safety tied with cornerback at plus 200 odds for the most likely first position pick by the Vikings. goes safety plus 200, cornerback plus 200, and then O-line 330, defensive line 370, and then down from there. FanDuel has cornerback ahead of safety at plus 170, safety second at 300, then O-line, D-line, linebacker. ESPN Bet, same thing as DraftKings. Safety plus 200, cornerback plus 200. So whether it's by mistake, which I see as unlikely because you're assuming then that Vegas is not as plugged into what the Vikings want to do with their draft as somebody like I am, who just follows them every day. It's pretty much saying, yeah, on paper the Vikings need a safety, but Vegas just doesn't know that the Vikings aren't looking for one, that they're comfortable with Theo Jackson. The Vegas just doesn't know that.
Right.
If you are in that thought process, then you should be going to draft. Yep, go spend money because then you've got one pulled over on Vegas and you can make some easy money if you go offensive line, defensive line, hedge your bets.
Not in Minnesota, but you can go do it somewhere.
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly.
Go drive to Iowa.
Yep, go drive to Iowa. There you go. Or what I am more apt to believe, because I don't think Vegas just gives away money like that, is that Vegas is not convinced of what the Vikings are telling everybody. They're looking, sure, they haven't invited any safeties to their top 30. Sure, they say that they're comfortable with Theo Jackson, but you know what? It just seems a little fishy. It just seems like they have way too big of a need to just completely X out safety as a need that they do not have entering the draft. And so they think it's a big smokescreen, that they have a safety or two that they have targeted and said, if this guy or these guys fall to us, we're jumping on them and we don't want anybody to know about it.
Well, I will say, because the reports are right that we're probably going to trade, or that's a good possibility, right? We're going to trade out. So you've got to think that other teams would be, potentially positioning to call us for trades. And then if we're sitting back, hiding in the water, I will say Doogie brought up Malachi Starks from Georgia today during the scoop session, which, although we didn't visit, it's definitely interesting. The other thing I was going to point out, so we do the Vikings mock draft roundup on the website. So I've been following that. There has been some safeties in these mock drafts. So Pro Football Network has Malachi Starks. Obviously, there's other cornerbacks, but then other guys so Nick Emanwari is a safety from South Carolina. Pro Football Focus and Sports Illustrated both had Nick Emanwari as the pick. So, I mean, it's, anybody's guess. But the one thing I will say about those safeties, too, is that they're, the analysts wrote about them, is that they're the versatile type safety guys, right? They could play anywhere. So maybe that is exactly what the Vikings are doing, and they don't want anybody to know that they're sneaking around looking for one of these versatile safeties that could hop in and do whatever, Brian Flores wants.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I'm looking at I've got our mock draft roundup pulled up right now. And yeah, you're right. They've Jade Barron.
Well,
that Emanwari that I've seen.
Nick Emanwari.
It seems like, if they have a sleeper safety that they're going after, it's probably that Emanwari. I think there's one other guy that I saw. Who did you say that?
Malachi Starks. He's at the top of the article there if you scroll up.
Oh yeah, So, look, it wouldn't shock me. And if you are the Vikings and you are thinking that way, it makes sense out of all the positions that you would say we aren't interested in really going this route early on. It would be safety because of the failures that they've had at safety since
Louis Cine.
Since he took over. And not just Louis Cine, but you can look at you can look at corners too. Andrew Booth Jr.
Right.
If you're
and that's, you don't have KOC to pick your guys.
Right. Well, Brian Flores hopefully, but that's definitely something that I'll be watching for as we get closer to the draft. When the national draft insiders, when we get a week away from the draft and they're really trying to pinpoint, hey, who who are the Vikings targeting? Who are they going after? Like what's the like up to date most likely that route they could go? How many of those are safeties? How many are corners? And then obviously who they eventually take. The other thing that's interesting with the draft that I'm paying attention to right now is there's two different schools of thought. There's the standard like trade tables that
Yep.
say where the Vikings are at 24,
Is worth.
where everybody wants to trade back. They want to trade back anywhere, 10 spots either into the early second round or later on into the first for anybody who targets and wants to come up. It just that's where the trade charts say you're getting good value for trading back at
Right.
that. At the same time, there's people like Matt Collar, and I want to say it was Alec Lewis this morning.
I mean, think about the picks that we've had in the 20s.
Well, they're pushing back and saying there's also a lot of draft data out there, and if you look at how Kwesi and the Vikings drafted last year, that says guys in the top 20, top 25 are different than anybody drafted after them. When you look at who
Right.
makes it, who doesn't, who ends up being a Hall of Famer, who ends up being a Pro Bowler, who ends up being All-Pro over and over, when you look at that and you break down where those guys were drafted, once you get to like pick 25, it falls off the ledge. So with the Vikings at 24, knowing that Kwesi traded back up and ignored the draft tables last year to come back up and get Dallas Turner in the top 20 at 17,
Right.
could it be possible that, like, yeah, they seem like they would be a good trade candidate, but trading back further out of the top 25 goes against the more advanced, like, it almost looks like what they're doing a lot of times is not archaic, but it's not the modern, like, focusing on draft tables, focusing on what the point systems say about your trades, and more focused on, no, it's not old school thinking that we want to get a certain guy. It's more so we want to get as many guys in the top 20, top 25 as possible. If they are thinking that, then they're less likely to trade back and more likely not probably to trade up. But if they, like, let's say, yeah, they are going after one of these safeties or corner or an offensive lineman that they've targeted that they're worried is going to go off the board, could I see them trading up 2 spots and using up a 2026 6th-round pick or something? That would not shock me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might right now for me, just with the lack of draft capital. Even, I mean, what does it look like next year?
Well, remember next year, though, they've stockpiled what they
That's
think is
right,
going to be 3
compensation
third-round
picks.
comp picks.
So then, yeah, no, I could definitely see it too. I mean, exactly how I would play it. You can't pass up value that you see as,
I agree. And
like not going to be there. There's nobody else left in the draft that provides this type of value. We have to trade up 2 picks,
yeah,
or whatever it is.
and the more I like look into it and you think about how that first trade back went, if you're Kwesi, would you rather have the whole fan base hating you because you traded back and it's draft day and nobody wants you to trade back on draft day? Or would you rather have, like, yeah, maybe some, like, draft pundits who are like, oh, you got screwed over
They lost value.
Yeah,
here,
they lost value, or they could have traded back and they would have had an
Right.
opportunity to get this guy and this guy, and they didn't. They took this guy instead.
But
Like,
those
that's
guys
what you're
aren't.
gonna hear if they stand pat or if they move up like 2 spots. But you know who's gonna
Yeah.
be happy at least for like the first 3 days until the pundits start to kind of catch up with the fan base, because
Yeah, the fans.
the fan base, you just want action. You want to see somebody drafted. You want to
Can
see
you
your
imagine
team
go to a draft party
do
for the
and all of a
first
sudden
round,
your
and
team
team
pops up 2 spots. You're like, yeah, like that's what you want to see on draft night. But then 2-3 days later, after the draft
You might start
experts are
questioning it, yeah.
hating on you for 3 straight days, then the fan base starts to turn a little bit. But I just think if you're Kwesi and you're looking at, we've done it both ways, right? Like, we have traded all the way back and it didn't work out. We've traded up. We don't know if those things worked out yet, and we've gotten some crap for doing it, but it's not nearly as bad as the shit that I've gotten since 2022.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, some of those players that we've taken like in the 20s, like Harrison Smith was a 20s player. Obviously not under Quasey, but uh, Jefferson. I mean,
And I think entertainment factor plays into it too. People downplay that and say, Quasey and those guys, they aren't making decisions based on like what the fans are going to think.
yeah,
Most of the time that you're right, but on a night like draft night, we have to remember that yes, it's about winning. At the end of the day, your fan base is never going to be happy if you don't win, right?
yep,
But moving back in the draft does not guarantee you're going to win more games. It
right,
certainly doesn't guarantee that whoever you're going to draft is going to be better than who you could have gotten in your first spot. So then you're looking at it and going, this is about entertainment. This is about, our fans. And if we can't really tell you that moving back is going to be a better option for the football team in the long run anyways, then why do it? Piss off the fan base, get them off started on a bad track into the dead part of the offseason when we could just stick and pick and get a good player
yeah,
and then they're happy. You know what I mean? So I
yeah,
really
no,
I really do think that plays into it at least a little bit.
yeah, no, it very well might. I mean,
I mean, you
who knows?
look at it like PA still talks about 2022. It ruined the entire Vikings draft party. They had this huge draft party. They're
Well, that's what I
drafting
was
at
just gonna
11,
say. It was like, yeah, imagine
and
same.
PA was
You go to a
somber
draft
and
party.
pissed off the whole rest of the draft party, and that was, you can say that the results of that draft are what have not sunk Quasey, but what has made
Well, it's all
so
the
much of the fan
question
base hate him.
marks.
But
Yes,
it started with the action, with that night itself, and how down on the trade back that fans were, that PA was, the buzzkill in US Bank Stadium at this huge draft party that they, fans pay. I don't know if they have to pay for the draft party themselves, but they have to pay for the food, they're there all night getting ready. Like, yes, let's make this pick. We just can't wait. We want to see who's next. Like, we want to buy the jerseys. We want to do
right.
all the research on them. We want to
I know.
that's what we want. And then boom, nope, we're not.
Traded out of the first
We're not
round.
drafting for another hour. Maybe not even tonight. And it's like, it just again, and you can say because it's not trading back as far that it wouldn't be the same. I would argue it would be worse because the draft party is and everybody is waiting that much longer, and now the trade doesn't happen until the end, and then you're like, oh, now I got to wait another 45 minutes until the draft until we pick.
Is
Again,
it the first two rounds on the first night, or is it just the first round?
it's just the first round. First night is the first round, and then it's rounds
Well,
2 and 3 on night 2, and then rounds 4 through 7.
draft party. You go to the draft party for round one, and you sit there until pick whatever 24, and
And
then
then boom, nope, we're not
we
drafting
might
at
as well
all.
leave.
I know.
The hell did we even come here for?
That's
Like,
what I mean, and I think it's already going to be kind of a down draft party compared to past years because there's
wow,
so
I
much
mean,
expectation for a
sure.
trade back, and
And last
their
year we
first
were up
pick isn't-
higher, and
yeah.
it was a quarterback.
Correct.
And,
So there's going to already be a little bit less steam. I don't know. I just think that with the risk trading back brings, which I just don't know if it's worth it. You look at, like we talked about before, with the top 25 players being historically better than anything after them. I just don't know that the pros and cons list would weigh in favor of the pros when it comes to trading back.